happens in relationships when mental health shows up? When you care deeply about each other, but something internal keeps getting in the way? Welcome to Evolve Your Intimacy with Dr. Stephanie. I'm Dr. Stephanie, licensed professional counselor, certified sex therapist, and clinical sexologist. And this is a special series where we're diving into the real, often misspoken ways mental health disorders impact intimate relationships. Throughout this series, we're going to break down some of the most common mental health challenges like anxiety, depression, ADHD, trauma, and so much more, and explore what they actually look like inside a relationship. This is about understanding what's really happening right beneath the surface so you can stop repeating the same cycle and start building something more intentional. So whether you're struggling or you love someone who is, this series is for you. Stay tuned. Let's be honest. Mental health affects intimacy. Anxiety, stress, overthinking. Sometimes your body is there, but your mind won't let you stay present. That's not just physical, that's neurological. And that's why Shameless Trio is different. Yes, it has sildenafil and tadalafil, but it also includes amorphine because arousal starts in the brain. It's sublingual, so it works faster, and it isn't heavily affected by food. So instead of fighting your body and your mind, you finally have the support of both working together. Go to Shameless Care and use code EVOLVE. That's shamelesscare.com, code EVOLVE, EVOLVE. You will not be disappointed. Welcome back to Evolve Your Intimacy with Dr. Stephanie. I'm Dr. Stephanie, and today we are talking about trauma. What happens when the past shows up in the present, especially in intimate relationships? But before we go on any further, I want to clear something up. When people hear the term post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, a lot of minds go straight to war, combat, soldiers, veteran, and yes, PTSD absolutely includes people who have experienced war, but PTSD is not limited to that. PTSD can come from any experience where your body felt overwhelmed, unsafe, or unable to escape. And that can include things like sexual assault, childhood abuse, domestic violence, serious accidents, medical trauma, a sudden loss of a loved one, being in a toxic or controlling relationship, and growing up in a home where love was just completely unpredictable or unsafe. Sometimes it's not even one big event. It can be a moment where your system said, whoa, this is too much and I don't have control. And your body never fully reset after that. Now, there's another term you may have heard of, and that's called complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or CPTSD. And understanding the difference between these two really matters, especially in relationships. PTSD is often linked to a specific event or series of events, something identifiable, a before and an after, like a car accident, an assault, a natural disaster, a single traumatic incident. The nervous system gets overwhelmed, and later certain triggers bring that experience back online. CPTSD, on the other hand, comes from repeated or prolonged trauma, especially in environments where you couldn't leave. This is often childhood neglect or abuse, long-term emotional invalidation, growing up with unpredictable or unsafe caregivers, and ongoing relational trauma. Instead of that one moment, it's a pattern. Not something bad happened to me, but this is what relationships felt like for a very long time. Here's why the distinction matters for intimacy. With PTSD, triggers might feel more specific: a sound, a place, a touch, a memory. With CPTSD, triggers are often relational and emotional: feeling ignored, feeling rejected, feeling too close, feeling like you're too much or not enough, the fear of abandonment or control. So in intimacy, it's not always about what's happening physically. It's about what the moment represents emotionally. And that's why someone can be in a safe, loving relationship and still feel unsafe. So when we talk about triggers, hypervigilance, emotional shutdown, and disconnection in intimacy, we're not just talking about overreactions. We're talking about the nervous system that adapted to survive something real. And those adaptations don't just disappear when someone enters a healthy relationship. They show up, especially in the moments that require the most vulnerability, like in intimacy. So in this episode, we're going to break down what that looks like and how to create safety in a relationship without losing yourself in the process. When we talk about trauma in relationships, most people think about arguments, trust issues, or emotional distance. But trauma shows up just as strongly, sometimes even more intensely, in intimacy. Not just sex, but closeness, vulnerability, being seen, being touched, letting your guard down. And here's the part that really confuses people. Someone can deeply want intimacy and still feel unsafe inside of it. That's not mixed signals. That's a nervous system doing its job. The body remembers what the mind forgets. Trauma isn't just about something you remember. It's about what your body learns. If someone has experienced betrayal, emotional neglect, sexual trauma, controlling relationships, or even inconsistent love, their body may have learned that closeness is unpredictable. Being vulnerable is risky. Love comes with pain. I have to stay alert to stay safe. So now, in a healthy or in a safer relationship, when intimacy starts to deepen, the body doesn't automatically go to, oh, this is good. It might go to, this feels familiar, and familiarity used to mean danger. That's why somebody can be lying next to a partner they trust and still feel tension, anxiety, or the urge to pull away. The push-pull dynamic creates what a lot of couples experience but don't understand. The push-pull, one moment they're affectionate, open, connected, sexually engaged, and then the next moment they're distant, irritated, shut down, or needing space. To a partner, it can feel like, which version of you is real? But both are real. One is the part that wants connection, and the other is the part that learned connection was unsafe. So intimacy becomes a tug-of-war between desire and protection. For someone without trauma, intimacy might feel like comfort, warmth, and closeness. But for someone with trauma, it can feel like exposure, being seen too clearly, being emotionally open, not having control, letting someone close enough to hurt you. Even healthy things can feel threatening, like prolonged eye contact, being emotionally affirmed, someone being gentle or slow, a partner wanting that deeper connection, silence between closeness. Because these moments require presence, and presence is exactly where that trauma lives. The nervous system is constantly asking, am I safe enough to stay here? If the answer is yes, connection deepens. If the answer is no, protection kicks in. And protection doesn't always look dramatic. It can look subtle, a sudden loss of interest, getting distracted, needing to control the pace, making jokes to break the intensity, focusing on performance instead of feeling, emotionally checking out during sex, feeling numb instead of connect, or the opposite, needing constant reassurance, becoming overly attentive to the partner's reactions, trying to get it right instead of just being present. Both are attempts to stay safe. And so, I want this, so why am I shutting down mentality is one of the most painful experiences for trauma. Wanting intimacy and then feeling your body resist it. It can create thoughts like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just enjoy this? I love them, so why am I pulling away? But this isn't about willpower. You can't think your way out of a nervous system response. Your body is trying to protect you based on past experiences, not current reality. And until your body learns that this moment is different, it will keep reacting like it's not. And so how does this affect your partner? Now, on the other side, the partner may experience the confusion, rejection, self-doubt, frustration, walking on eggshells, feeling unwanted. They may start asking, did I do something wrong? Are you not attracted to me? Why do you pull away when things get close? And if they don't understand trauma, they may personalize it. But here's the key shift. Instead of seeing the behavior as rejection, we have to start seeing the behavior as regulation. And the person isn't necessarily pulling away from you. They're trying to come back to a place where they feel safe enough to return. Intimacy is where healing really gets tested. You can do a lot of healing on your own. You can understand your trauma. You can develop coping tools. You can feel stable in everyday life. But intimacy is where it all gets tested. because intimacy asks, can you stay present while being seen? Can you receive love without bracing for loss? Can you let someone close without needing control? That's advanced work for a nervous system that learned to survive, not relax. For trauma-impacted relationships, intimacy has to be redefined, not as a constant closeness, a perfect connection, or uninterrupted chemistry, but as the ability to stay or return to connection, even when the nervous system gets activated. That might look like pausing instead of pushing through, naming what's happening instead of hiding, slowing down instead of performing, choosing presence over protection, because real intimacy isn't about never getting triggered. It's about building a relationship where people know we can handle what happens when we do. I really want to slow down, and I really want to make sure that you understand what's happening inside the body and the brain when trauma shows up during intimacy, because these aren't random reactions. They are predictable, patterned responses from a nervous system that learned how to survive. And most of the time, they show up in 3 core ways: triggers, hypervigilance, and emotional shutdown. A trigger is something that reminds the body, consciously or unconsciously, of a past threat. And here's the important part. Triggers aren't always logical. They're associative. And that means the brain isn't asking, is this dangerous? It's asking, does this feel similar to something that was dangerous? In intimacy, triggers can be incredibly subtle. A certain tone of voice, a way someone initiates touch, feeling rushed or pressured, a shift in a partner's energy, eye contact that feels too intense, being in a vulnerable position physically or emotionally. And then suddenly your body reacts. Your heart rate increases, muscles tense, breathing changes, your attention narrows. You might feel anxious, irritated, disconnected, or like you need to just get completely out of the situation, even if logically you know you are safe. Research shows trauma is more common than people think. About 6 out of 10 men and about 5 out of 10 women experience at least one traumatic event in their lifetime. Around 6% of the U.S. population will experience post-traumatic stress disorder at some point. Hello, we all lived through the pandemic. For people with trauma histories, intimate relationships are one of the most common places triggers show up because they involve vulnerability, touch, emotional exposure. So if this is happening in your relationship, this is not rare and it's not a personal failure. Hypervigilance is what happens when the nervous system stays on alert. Even in safe situations, it's like your internal alarm system is set just a little too sensitive. So in intimacy, this can look like constantly reading your partner's facial expressions, worrying about something wrong, needing reassurance that everything is okay, struggling to stay present during sex or closeness, feeling tense instead of relaxed. Instead of being in the moment, you're watching the moment, you're monitoring it, you're trying to stay ahead of anything that might go wrong. And this happens because from our brain's perspective, the amygdala, the part responsible for detecting a threat, becomes more reactive after trauma. Studies show that people with PTSD often have heightened threat detection and the reduced ability to turn off that stress response. And that's why even neutral or even positive situations like affection or closeness can feel so unsafe. Your body isn't broken, it's being overprotective. Now let's talk about the one thing that impacts intimacy the most, and that's the emotional shutdown. This is the nervous system saying, this is too much, we're done. And instead of fight or flight, it's more like freeze or collapse. In intimacy, this can look like going quiet or distant, losing that emotional connection, feeling numb, suddenly losing desire, dissociating during sex, feeling like you're not really there. And this is the part that hurts partners the most, because from the outside, it looks like disinterest, rejection, withdrawal. But internally, it's more like I'm overwhelmed and I don't know how to stay present. Studies have found that PTSD is strongly linked to lower relationship satisfaction, reduced sexual satisfaction, higher emotional withdrawal, and one of the biggest predictors of distress is not the trauma itself. It's how trauma responses are understood and handled between partners. So in one moment, And so in one moment of intimacy, here's what might be happening. A trigger gets activated. The nervous system goes into hypervigilance, and it becomes too much. So shutdown happens, all within seconds. No conscious decision, no intentions to hurt anyone, just a system trying to stay safe. So instead of labeling these as overreactions or mood swings or rejection, start seeing them as an automatic survival response. Because when you understand the pattern, you stop taking it personally and you start responding in a way that actually creates safety. And that allows intimacy to slowly become something the body can trust again. In a lot of situations, there's this misunderstanding of you're rejecting me. This is the moment where a lot of relationships start to quietly break down. Not because there's no love, not because there's no attraction, but because of what's happening internally. And gets interrupted externally in the wrong way. One partner pulls back and the other partner feels it immediately. Emotionally, it lands as you don't want me. I did something wrong. I'm being pushed away. I'm not enough. And that feeling is real. But the meaning behind it might not be. So what it looks like on the surface, you're being affectionate and your partner stiffens. You initiate sex and they hesitate or go quiet. You're in the middle of intimacy and then suddenly they disconnect. You try to get closer emotionally and they change the subject or shut down. From the outside, it feels like rejection. And there's no explanation in the moment, no clarity, just distance where there used to be a connection. And the human brain hates that gap, so it fills it with a story. This must be about me. Inside the other person, something very different may be happening. Their nervous system may be saying, this feels intense. I'm losing a sense of control. This reminds me of something I haven't processed. I don't feel safe staying in this moment right now. And none of that necessarily has anything to do with your attractiveness, your worth, your desirability, or your effort. It has to do with their internal capacity in that moment. Here's the hard truth. Both people's experiences are valid. One person feels overwhelmed and pulls away. The other person feels hurt and rejected. And neither understands what's happening. And so the cycle begins. Person A shuts down. Person B feels rejected. Person B reacts. Person A feels even less safe. Person A withdraws more. It's not just trauma, it's a pattern. Rejection hits deep because it connects to some core fears, not being wanted, not being chosen, not being enough. So when a trauma response shows up as distance, it doesn't feel neutral. It feels personal, even if it's not intended that way. And without context, people often respond in ways that actually make the situation much worse. Pushing for reassurance, taking it personally or withdrawing, getting frustrated or getting critical, trying to fix it in the moment, all of which can increase pressure and make the shutdown more likely. Instead of immediately going to, you're rejecting me, let's try shifting to, something just happened in your nervous system. Can you help me understand it? That one shift moves from accusation to curiosity, from disconnection to potential repair. And what does that sound like in real life? So instead of, why are you pulling away from me? Why don't you say, when you pulled away from me, I felt disconnected. Are you okay? And instead of, you're not even into this, why don't you say something like, I want to feel close to you. Can you tell me what's going on right now with you? And for the person experiencing the trauma response, this matters too, because silence creates confusion. Even a simple sentence can prevent a lot of hurt. I'm not rejecting you. I just got overwhelmed for a second. I need a pause, not distance from you. I want this. I just need to slow down. And this is where intimacy is built or broken, not in the perfect moments, but in the moments like this. Moments where something goes off, someone pulls back, and both people have a choice. They can choose to assume or to understand. They can choose to react or to stay curious, to personalize or to pause. Because real intimacy isn't about never feeling rejected. It's about learning how to differentiate between rejection and protection. And when both people can start to see the difference, that's when the cycle begins to change. When we talk about intimacy, most people think about chemistry, attraction, communication. But intimacy is not just emotional or mental. It's physiological. It lives in the body. And if trauma lives in the body too, then intimacy is exactly where those two collide. The body doesn't follow logic, unfortunately. You can know you're safe. You can trust that you're safe. You can want that connection, but your body can still respond like something is wrong. And that's because the nervous system is not driven by logic. It's driven by pattern recognition. It's constantly asking, have you felt something like this before? And if you have, how did it end? So if closeness, vulnerability, or touch were ever paired with fear, pressure, unpredictability, pain, or loss of control, then intimacy, even healthy intimacy, can activate those same pathways, not because your partner is unsafe, but because your body hasn't fully updated the story yet. So let's talk about arousal versus safety. This is where things can get very confusing because physical arousal and emotional safety are not the same thing. Someone can be physically responsive, engaged, and even initiating intimacy and still not feel fully safe in their body. Or the opposite. They can feel emotionally connected and their body suddenly shuts down. That's because different systems are at play. The arousal system is desire and physical response. And the nervous system safety response is threat detection, protection. And if the safety system gets activated, it overrides everything. When trauma is present, the body may react in ways that don't match what the person wants. Some of the most common responses include freezing. The body becomes still. Movement slows, words disappear. Inside, it can feel like you're stuck, kind of like quicksand. Or you fawn, you become a people pleaser, going along with things to avoid the conflict or discomfort, saying yes when the body means no. We also have the fight or the irritation, sudden frustration, anger, or pushing away. This often gets misunderstood as an attitude, but it's protection. And then we flight. We want to leave, creating that distance, needing space quickly. Or we dissociate, feeling disconnected from our body, like you're there, but you're not fully there. And here's what's important. These responses are not choices. They are automatic survival patterns. My body said no before I could. One of the hardest experiences for trauma survivors is this: wanting intimacy, choosing intimacy, and then feeling their body shut down anyway. It can sound like, I was so into it, and then I just wasn't. I don't know what happened. I felt myself disappear. And that creates some shame, possibly some guilt, because they think I'm broken, I'm confusing, I'm hurting my partner. But what actually happens is your body hit a threshold. And once that threshold is crossed, the nervous system takes over. Not to sabotage the connection, but to preserve safety. And this is why control becomes so important. In many trauma-impacted relationships, control is a quiet theme in intimacy. Not control over the partner, but control over pacing, positioning, environment, timing, emotional intensity. Because control creates predictability, and predictability creates safety. So when your partner suddenly changes pace, becomes more intense, or introduces something unexpectedly, even if it's healthy or normal, it can feel destabilizing. So slowing down is not a setback. Here's where couples often get stuck. They think if we have to slow down this much, something's wrong. But in trauma-informed intimacy, slowing down is progress because slowing down allows the body to stay present, register safety, build new associations, remain connected instead of being overwhelmed. Fast intimacy can feel exciting, but slow intimacy builds trust in the nervous system. Let's explore staying versus performing. Without trauma awareness, intimacy can come about the performance, the expectations, the outcomes. But for someone healing from trauma, the real goal is different. Can I stay in my body while I'm close to you? Not, we do it right, did we get to the end? But did I feel present? Did I feel safe enough to stay? Because that's the foundation everything is built on. And what a partner needs to fully understand is your partner's body is not rejecting you. It's responding to internal signals that may have nothing to do with you. And your response in those moments can either increase safety or increase pressure. Safety can sound like, we can slow down. You're okay. There's no rush. I'm here with you. Pressure sounds like, what's wrong? Why do you always do this? Just relax. Can we just finish? One builds connection, the other reinforces the body's belief that this is not safe. Rebuilding trust in the body takes time. Healing intimacy is not just about trusting your partner, it's about your body learning, I can be here and nothing bad happens. That takes repetition, consistency, gentleness, and patience. And over time, the body starts to update. Closeness doesn't equal danger. Vulnerability doesn't equal harm. Touch doesn't equal a loss of control. Intimacy after trauma is not about pushing past your body. It's about listening to it run the whole relationship, because real intimacy isn't just two people connecting. It's two nervous systems learning how to feel safe together. When I'm working with my couples and one partner has PTSD or even CPTSD, they often ask, how can I create safety without walking on eggshells? And this is the part people struggle with the most, because once trauma is in the conversation, a lot of partners start thinking, so I just have to be careful all the time? Or do I need to filter everything I say or do? Or am I going to trigger them no matter what? And on the other side, am I too much? Do they have to walk on eggshells around me? Am I the problem in this relationship? So let's be really clear. Safety is not the same as fragility. And it's not the same thing as tiptoeing around each other. Healthy safety is not silence, avoidance, over-accommodation, or suppressing your own needs. That's not safety. That's fear. Safety actually means both people can be fully human without the relationship feeling like a threat. It means you can speak honestly, you can have needs, you can even make mistakes, and you can repair when things go wrong. Most importantly, when something gets activated, there is always a way back to connection, and that creates real security. The difference between walking on eggshells and building safety sounds like, I didn't say that. Don't say that. It might set them off. Just avoid the topic. Go along with whatever they need just so they don't shut down. Hide your frustration. And again, that creates resentment, pressure, emotional distance. Building safety sounds like we can talk about the hard things, but we'll have to do it in a way that keeps us connected. If something gets triggered, we know how to pause without blaming. We can both take responsibility for how we show up. And that thought process creates trust, predictability, and emotional security. That's where safety comes from, predictability. Trauma thrives in unpredictability. So one of the fastest ways to create safety is through consistency and clarity. And that means saying what you mean, following through on what you say, not shifting emotionally without explanation, being steady in how you respond. Because when someone knows, if I get overwhelmed, this is how my partner will respond, their nervous system starts to relax. And so one of the most powerful things that you can do in intimacy is restore choice. Trauma often involves a loss of choice. So safety sounds like, do you want to keep going or pause? Would you rather slow down or stop? What feels good right now? Instead of, come on, it's fine, just relax. Why are you stopping? Choice tells the nervous system you're in control, and control creates safety. Learning the difference between activation and harm, that's where the balance matters. Because not every trigger means something is wrong in the relationship. Sometimes your partner is activated, but you didn't do anything harmful. And if every activation gets treated like wrongdoing, the relationship becomes tense and restricted. So the goal is to be able to say, I see you're triggered and I care, but I also want to understand what part is about the present and what part might be about the past. That keeps both people grounded in reality. Here are a few simple but powerful shifts. So if we move from accusation to observation, you're shutting me out. I noticed you got quiet just now. 2 different statements. Assumptions to curiosity. You don't want me. Moves to, are you feeling overwhelmed or needing space? From pressure to support. Why do you always do this? To, we can pause. I'm here. It's responsibility on both sides. This is not a one-person job. If you are the partner, your role is not to fix or prevent every trigger. Your role is to be steady, respectful, open, and responsive instead of reactive. And if you are the one with trauma, your role is not to never get triggered. Your role is to recognize when it's happening, communicate as clearly as you can, and take ownership of your healing. Because without that, the relationship can become unbalanced. Repair is more important than perfection. You're going to get it wrong sometimes, both of you. Something will be said the wrong way. Something will be mishandled. Someone will get triggered. That's not failure. What matters is what happens next. Safety sounds like, that didn't come out the way I meant it. I can see that hurt you. Can I try that again? Repair teaches the nervous system that when things go wrong, we come back together. When safety is built consistently, something shifts. The person with the trauma begins to feel less guarded, more present, more able to stay connected, less reactive to the small changes, and their partner begins to feel less anxious, less like they're guessing, more secure in the connection, more free to be themselves. Creating safety isn't about shrinking yourself, and it's not about managing someone else's every reaction. It's about building a relationship where truth is allowed, emotions are handled, not avoided, and both people know how to come back to each other, because real safety isn't fragile, it's built. And once it's built, intimacy stops feeling like something you have to be careful with and starts feeling like something you can actually relax into. Before we close this out, I want to bring everything back to one simple truth. Trauma doesn't change what you remember. It changes what your body expects. So when intimacy feels hard, when closeness feels confusing, when one of you pulls away and the other one feels rejected, it's not about the moment you're in. It's about everything your nervous system has learned to protect you from. But here's the part I don't want you to miss. You are not stuck there. Your body can learn something new. Not overnight, not perfectly, but consistently. Through moments where you paused instead of pushed. You asked instead of assumed. You stayed instead of shutting down. You repaired instead of withdraw. That's how safety gets built. If you are the one carrying the trauma, you're not too much. You're not broken. Your system adapted to something real. But healing means learning that you don't have to stay in survival mode with someone who is safe. If you're loving someone with trauma, you're not invisible, you're not unwanted, and you're not responsible for fixing everything. But you are part of creating an environment where safety can grow. And for both of you, intimacy is not about getting it right every time. It's about knowing how to find your way back to each other when something goes wrong. Because it will. And that's not the end of the connection. That's where real connection is built. So the next time your past shows up in your present, instead of asking what's wrong with us, try asking what just happened and how do we stay connected through it? That question alone can change everything. If this episode resonated with you, don't just sit with it, use it. Take one piece from today and bring it into your relationship this week. Because insight without action doesn't create change. Intentional behavior does. If you want deeper support, tools, and structured guidance, you can explore my workshops and relationship resources at evolveyourintimacy.com. And if this episode helped you feel seen, understood, or gave you the language for something you couldn't quite explain, share it with your partner. Sometimes the most powerful way to start a conversation is not by finding the perfect words, but by pressing play. And if you haven't already, make sure you follow the podcast and leave a review. It helps more people find this work and start changing the way they show up in their relationships. Until next week, stay connected, stay curious, and stay intentional about the way you show up in your most intimate relationships.